All right, and over to you, Robert.
Okay, well, thanks, Christine. And again, thank you all out there for joining us. And in particular, thanks so much, Vikki, for taking the time out of your day to do this. And just real quickly, an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. A little bit of a bio about Vikki. I'm going to ask her a little bit about just her leadership journey, how she got from where she was until where she is today. Obviously, we're going to talk about the fire and what happened in Porterville, and share a few photos with you. And if you have any questions about that, well then, Vikki has said, sure, just ask her anything. What they're doing in Porterville as far as moving forward, and talk a little bit, maybe just get Vikki's perspective on crisis leadership, because I mean she's gotten like a double dip of this thing. So I'm really interested to hear what her perspective is on that, and a few just random questions. And there are going to be a few of these questions that we're going to ask you in the audience to participate as well, because again, I'm curious to hear what you people out in your part of the world are doing for certain things. But I'm going to start this with something that I get asked a lot about from other people that are, for example, in the leadership cohort. They say, man, you seem to know a lot of people, and part of it is just, because I'm old. And so, you learn to meet a lot of people over the years. But one thing I'm going to do with all of these leadership programs, when I talk to these library leaders, I'm going to ask them, so how did we meet? Or do you remember the first time we met? Because it's, I think a lot of it's very random, and how you meet people, I don't know, but I do think it's really important to, as you get into your leadership career, as far as just getting to know people. So, and I told Vikki, I think I remember how I first met her, but let's see if our memories jive up. So go ahead, Vikki. When did we first meet?
Okay, who's going first?
You.
So I met Robert at a library directors forum.
Okay, good.
My dear friend Diane Satchwell, who I met in grad school, introduced us, and she says, Robert, I want you to meet my wonderful friend Vikki. And then that's how it all took off.
I think, that was exactly how I remember it. And then I remember actually just sitting, I think we were like in the back of the room, not paying attention what was going on in the, whoever was talking.
We were catching up.
And I just asked you, I mean, I might have been the CLA president then, but I said, I think you should run for the CLA board. You obviously never took me up on that, but oh well, I guess I've gotten.
You and Deborah Doyle have asked me to do that.
Okay, well, all right, well, let's talk, just get into your bio, because I mean, you're the city librarian in Porterville. A couple of things I thought were real interesting about you. One is you're actually on the school board, elected official in Porterville, and then also you are the current vice president of the California Public Library Advocates. So I think that's great. But let's talk about your library journey and how you got started. You're a local Porterville girl, so how does one grow up to be the library director in her hometown?
Well, let me start with I was unemployed for a good while, and my dear friend from elementary school said her library director at the Porterville City Library, she was working part-time, said she's looking for other part-time people. I think you'd be perfect at it. And I always had a love for the library. My mom brought us into the library as children, participating in story times and summer reading programs. And so I had a love of reading, and I had a love for my community library. So I applied and was hired on the spot. Like, we want to have you come to work here. And so Carolyn Johnson, the city librarian at the time, hired me. And Carolyn was just an energetic leader, and she really loved to answer all of the curious questions that a 19-year-old part-time library aide would have. And she really gave up the time to listen, and you felt heard. And she was very supportive in anything that you wanted to do, even if it wasn't library related. And so I found myself just sucked into this business of public library service. Very rewarding, giving young children their library cards, helping older patrons with finding book materials for reading. And so I thought, gosh, could I do this for the rest of my life? I mean, I was probably about two to 3 years into it. I started at 19 years old in 1995, and so I just started on that path for education, going through my local community college and working my way through the ranks. But nobody would retire here in our small library. But finally, 5 years later, working part-time, I just hung in there. I was able to secure a full-time position as a library assistant. And as a library assistant, that just made me all more curious about how the libraries ran. What does a library director do? What is their involvement with the community? You know, just again, asking that question. And Carolyn was such a great leader in that capacity to help you achieve your dreams and your goals. And so I really set out to continue my education and just work my way through the library services, serving the public. So I did a lot of programming. I did some collection development. I did the ugly things as calling people to tell them that they owed fines to the city. I did periodicals management, and so I just really fell into love for that, and definitely a public servant was my calling. So I was able to work off that point when in fact just a few short years later, Tulare City Library was hiring for a management position, and I thought I was at the right point in my education and what they were looking for. I had definitely had plenty of years of service to go and seek out this supervisory position with the City of Tulare. And Porterville and Tulare are practically neighbors. We're only 25 miles apart. They are the only other city library in Tulare County. And so Tulare County is geographically very big. So there's a county library, and then there are 2 city libraries that operate in the county, separately of the county. So Tulare City, went to work in Tulare City in 2002. And again, started asking the library director there, what do you love about your job? I think I see myself doing this for the rest of my life. And he was just a great mentor in that capacity to really help pursue my education up to the master's level, gain that critical experience as a leader, working with people. And so you have your staff that you develop, and you help create a path of interest for them so that they can enjoy coming to work, because there is no business like city library business because of the diverse public that we serve. And the diverse public that we serve is from homeless to the elderly to the preschooler to the college student. And so I think that when you follow, I'm a big believer, follow your passion. And then because when you follow your passion, you feel like it doesn't feel so much like you're actually like bombarded with all this work. And so the most interesting thing about my journey is that a unique opportunity presented itself in Porterville to be on the Library Board of Trustees. And I thought, I was still a resident of Porterville. I thought, I definitely have a big interest, a big heart for this. I think I could serve very well as a Board of Trustee. And so I was appointed by City Council, and it was only on board for a couple of months before the City Librarian, Carolyn Johnson, had to leave to her second home in Missouri because it had become flooded. And so she had decided at that time to retire. And she had about 37 years of library service in, so she retired and her position became available. And in Porterville, in the city of Porterville, the library division falls under Parks and Leisure. So it's the Parks and Leisure Director and the division of the library, the division of parks, and the division of leisure services. And so I applied for the position, was hired to become the city librarian, and so I've been the city librarian for a little over 12 years. One of the things that I love about coming back to my hometown community is that I'm able to see my Storytime kids come in with their children. And you can't put a price tag on these relationships you build within your own respective communities. And so I find that I find that just, again, it makes your heart burst with happiness. I've got a slide to show you in a little bit of one of my favorite patrons. They're all my favorite patrons, but this one has a special place in my heart. And so when I became the city librarian here in Porterville, after somebody who had been in the position previously for 37 years, there was a lot to change or to change focus to, and most importantly to me, it was customer service. If we were not providing a positive experience in our respective business, then we were gonna lose people to our competition. And you know, and the competition being, you know, they were going to go check out at Redbox, pay $1 to get a DVD. They were going to get the cheap books on Amazon, you name it. And so we did a big. It took a little bit of time, but when I came on board with short-term and long-term goals on a little tiny post-it note, and that was my first staff meeting. I had worked with a few of the people before, when I worked in Porterville before. Coming back as the leader would just seem like a perfect fit. So we were able to get things off and running, had a great team in place already. I feel very fortunate about that. And so I have been known in my own respective city, it happened over time, that I produce the staff that everybody wants. And I can't take full responsibility for that. I do have two amazing library supervisors who help create the team as well. But to have that noticed in my small, because we're a small community of 60,000 population here, and our workforce in the city of Porterville is about 240 employees. And so when the assistant city manager is telling you that you produce that workforce for the greater good of your municipal government, is quite an honor. And so so my staff does know that I'm big on, you know, you only have one opportunity to make that first impression, and you don't know who the person across the table from you that you are serving, that you're helping with their informational needs. You don't know who they are in our community. They could be your next employer. They could be, you know, they could be somebody who's related to the mayor, you know. And so I try to case that messaging for them so that they know how important it is to carry themselves, and that I will do anything in my power to help fulfill their goals and dreams, if it's not working in the library for a long term. And so I like to call them it's like my garden. And so if I'm not nurturing and fostering an environment to help them grow, then I'm not doing my job well. And so that's just kind of my leadership philosophy. Like I said before, this career path found me. I didn't go out seeking it. And so I feel very lucky that, gosh, like this summer will be 25 years of public library service from the ground up. And so I feel very fortunate. I just turned 45 on March 19th. So I feel very fortunate that I have a story that I'm able to tell in this regard. And that's what I do with my staff from the part-timers on. I tell my story. And I find that that helps them really figure out kind of that how things happen. You know, nothing is ever given to you. You do have to work hard for it. But if you follow your passion, it's almost like everything falls into place when you follow your passion. And maybe some of you out there have some relatable stories like that. Because I followed my passion, this is what fell into this journey. And so I've been very fortunate also along the way, especially in my 12 years here as a city librarian, to meet wonderful people like Robert, like Deborah Doyle. I saw she's on here, Diane Satchwell. I've had a wonderful experience meeting a lot of other people in the California Library Association as well. I'm working on smaller committees. And so, but I'm here to assist and help you in any way that I can as well. So this is an open invitation to you. And pretty much that's where my journey hasn't ended. It's not going to end for a while. As I disclose my age, I won't be retiring anytime soon. But I do hope to continue to serve in public libraries for a good amount of time still.
Awesome. Okay, a couple of questions came up while I was listening to what you were saying. Okay, first of all, and I'm asking this question for a friend, for the geographically challenged, I mean, where specifically is Porterville?
Oh, I love that. That's my favorite question. It always gets asked at public library director forums and CLA conference. Porterville is located between Bakersfield and Fresno, more towards the more towards the eastern mountains. So if you're familiar with Highway 99, before you get to Bakersfield, there's a split, Highway 99, Highway 65, and Porterville is off Highway 65.
Okay, and I thought it was funny when you said Porterville and Tulare are only 25 miles apart, at least. Down here in Southern California, 25 miles is like 80 different cities and counties that you would pass through. Okay, and next question then, when you were talking about, how this profession maybe chose you, what would you want to do if you weren't a librarian? Or did you think growing up, I really want to do this?
Oh, okay, so when I was growing up, it changed from like being a dental hygienist to being a photographer for Sports Illustrated. So it's been on a couple of wild spectrums there. As I've been in this career path for such a long time, some of the things that capture my interest are like let's see, like in the police department, there is a cataloger for evidence. And so that's not their title, but when you read the job description, that's what comes to mind, like you're cataloging evidence, and that you're this cataloger. When I was going to school at San Jose State University, Disney Pixar had, they were looking for a cataloger. The FBI was looking for a researcher. So when I'm called upon in my respective duties here to talk to high school students that are interested in librarianship, I do cover a big gamut of professional career paths you can take in librarianship. And so I try to keep it interesting, because I think there's still that stereotype. I don't know why, but I'm sure it'll be around long after I retire, about librarians. All you do is sit around and read, or your hair's in a bun, so on and so forth. And so I try very hard to open the eyes of our younger generation, so that they know that there's so much more to librarianship in that regard.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you about the fire in a second, but before this, one more just kind of a question. I mean for you, but this one's for everyone, all the people in our virtual audience as well. Oh, and by the way, again, if you're entering something into the chat, if you pull down that little arrow, by default, it's all panelists. But if you pull it down, it will say all panelists and attendees. If you do that, everyone in the room can see what you write. But question, I mean, we've all find ourselves having, I guess, a little bit of time on our hands here. So like, I want to hear from people in the audience, but also from you, Vikki, just like, what's one thing that you've learned in the past, month or two, and then maybe one thing that's really kind of helped you just to pass the time, because I'm starting to run out of things to do myself. Go.
Well, all of my professional stuff was destroyed in the fire. I still have, I'm part of a library cooperative, so I still have access to my personal files that I kept saved there. But right now I feel like a brand new employee. I don't know how to explain that, other than having like nothing, not your portfolio, your business cards, nothing. I have zero. And so I've been working on like a little list, just not even every day. I haven't been focusing a lot of time on like, what do I really need to do my job? I haven't made like a long-term or short-term list, just as things come to me, because to be honest with you, I've been inundated with so many outside members of the public wanting to help. And so I find a lot of my time in talking to them about how they can help. And so, but to think about like being that brand new employee, like like I said, this summer I'll have 25 years in municipal library service. What do I really need? What did I have in my possessions that I really valued and needed? Well, I kept a lot of, I'm working with my third Parks and Leisure director, so I kept a lot of things, political things that I had worked on over the years in files. And I thought that someday I may need this. I may need this information. And so I'm not a hoarder of stuff, but because sometimes your leadership position is unique, you're not the highest person on the totem pole, and so just things that I thought that I would need at some point, I kept, and so now that I'm starting from scratch, it feels like I just feel like a new person in that regard, and I bet some of you who look around at the things you've kept from college and so on and so forth, I bet you this is the great opportunity for you to look at the things you could pass forward. And I feel like if I would have done more of that, then I wouldn't have been so stuck in this little niche of again, in my respective position, because I am working with my third Parks and Leisure director. So I feel like this is a great opportunity for me to become more creative, more innovative, and just those essential things. I don't even have a file cabinet right now, and so I kind of thought, well, do I even need that piece of furniture right now? Is that something I can have later? But I am accumulating some type of files right now, just not to the degree that merit of having a file cabinet. And so in this conversation, I was stressed that if you look around your respective offices and you are holding on to things, to really think about it, could you pass this information forward and develop another future leader like yourself, and really kind of take that type of inventory. I've been definitely doing a lot of counseling with my employees who are displaced in other city departments, and so I haven't had too much time to focus on Vikki for the time being, and so I'm just taking it in little baby steps, Robert, little baby steps.
Yeah, okay. And have you had time to do discover a new fun thing to do or something to watch on TV that you just gotta watch?
No, not necessarily. No, I feel like we went from the fire to coronavirus, and that's kind of like the way I feel like things. The timeline has blended together so much. But I'm you know what I am dying to do. I would love to go see a Broadway show. Sometime in 2020. I have some tickets to go see Les Miserables is coming to Fresno, and I have tickets. It's at the end of April, but I think because of Corona, I'm not going to be able to do that. And that's kind of what I'm holding out hope for. But no, as far as TV watching, there's not anything that I'm trying to stay away from the news even.
Okay, I mean, I'll tell the people out there one thing that I've learned, and you're all probably going to hate me for this and send nasty comments in the chat, but I tried watching Tiger King because, like Trevor Noah said, it's like the greatest thing you're ever going to see on TV and on Time Magazine. And I started watching, maybe about 30 minutes into it, I just said, man, I don't get this as far as the subject matter. I guess it was interesting, but the characters, I didn't find them to be, very likable, or, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. So I may try to watch it again, because everyone else that I've been talking, to says, what have you been watching? Tiger King, you gotta watch that. So maybe I'll try it again, but otherwise, if you don't watch Tiger King, it's okay with me. Okay, let's get down to probably why everyone is here today. Let's talk about the fire in Porterville, and do you want me to start the photos now? And
Yeah. So I was homesick the day of the fire. The fire happened the day after a holiday, so certainly we were very busy on Tuesday, the February 18th. We were open Monday through Sunday, so people were missing us for 2 days, right, or a couple of days, and so they were coming in to return their materials. The library is situated in between a few elementary schools, a middle school, and a private Catholic school. And so the fire happened about 4:10 p.m. on Tuesday, February 18th. These are our two fallen heroes that heroically tried to, stop the fire: Captain Ramon Figueroa and firefighter Patrick Jones. And so as a homegrown person in Porterville, for me, it's about the loss of lives and not so much about the facility that was destroyed. This is unprecedented in our community. Never in my lifetime did I ever expect to be telling a story like this, and much of the community feels the same way. And if you'll go to the next slide. So I got the call. Fire started about 4:10. I got the call about 4:20 that the library was on fire. We had some smaller fires up in the men's restroom, self-contained, mostly smoke. They started it in a fire bin over the last 4 years. So, juveniles had messed around in the library before. And so when I got the call, I asked if it had spread to the second floor, and my library supervisor, Tony, had said, yes, it's everywhere, Vicki, it's everywhere. I said, okay, I'm on my way down. So the juveniles started the fire in this little play structure right here in our children's area. And the fire started in that little castle. And certainly when the ashes, like fire ashes lifted, that once that netting got any fire attached to it, then the whole ceiling just took off. And so right to the left of that play castle, about 20 feet away, is our 3 study rooms. And one of our library patrons, Larry, would come every day to use the Wi-Fi and use one of the study rooms to connect with his family in Australia. And Larry went and knocked out the staff offices right next to the study room and said, there's a fire, I need a fire extinguisher. And he got right on it. He put his life on the line to save the library and save the community that was visiting. Our staff had already put out the 911 call. So as he was trying to address the fire in the children's area, staff was already quickly getting people out of the second level, out of the library. And there was probably a good 30 to 40 people in the library counting staff. And so so everyone was out of the library when I received the call at 4:20. When I asked Tony, if it had spread to the second floor, like I said, he said it was everywhere. And as you can see, there's all that fuel right there. The bookcases, the books, you name it, just took off. And the fire, you can go to the next slide, Robert. The fire department is right next to the library. It's right connected to the library. And so the fire guys were right on scene as quickly as they could be. It was reported to them that there were still members of the public upstairs in the restroom. So when the team went in to look, the 2 firefighters got turned around on all the heavy smoke. And so we just were not prepared to lose them so quickly at the very initial stages of the fire. So that's within that first like 20 to 30 minutes of the fire, as it took off. This is the next day. This is the day after the fire. In the afternoon, I had the opportunity to meet Senator Melissa Hurtado. She's our representative. She's in the burgundy shirt. Next to her is City Council Member Stowe. Across from City Council Member Stowe is Mayor Flores. She's in the black and white blazer. Our City Manager John Lawless in the white shirt. Police Chief Crodel behind him. Myself and my Parks and Leisure Director Donnie Moore in the blue sweatshirt. And Melissa was here to grieve with us the loss of lives, the loss of the community library. I was able to articulate what type of loss this was to our community in the sense of a community library, because we were more than just books. We were about the people and programs. And so, and everyone who needed us from every span of life here in our respective community. We have a proud history. And so I had the opportunity to put that into perspective for her. The mayor was able to articulate our need of assistance in rebuilding, and so I felt good about being in the right place at the right time on the day after the fire. I also found myself in unexpected ways helping the fire investigators. So early on that morning, the day after the fire, I was called upon to actually go by the facility, close enough to it, and I didn't even have a chance to really process my own feelings about it. I figured my job was to help them do their job, and help them get as close to the way the structure was standing after the fire, the layout, get familiar with the layout. And so they were working on recovery that day of firefighter Jones. He was still in the facility. If you'll go to the next slide. This read panel, my staff put up that Dr. Seuss sign the day of the fire. They had just gotten it up there and they decided to take a picture for whatever reason. And so this is the day of the fire earlier in the morning. And if you go to the next slide. That read panel is made out of plywood. And that plywood was put into place about several years ago when a bird flew into the 1954 window. and it only left about the size of a hand of missing glass, and the rest of the glass stood together, believe it or not. And so we temporarily put plywood up and got a cost estimate to replace that panel. And the panel came back for replacement cost of about $1,200. And I thought, $1,200, that's a library program in my community. And so I just didn't have the heart to get a panel. What I did have the heart for was, well, those are 1954 windows, and maybe we should get energy efficient windows. So maybe we should get a cost estimate on that. Well, that cost estimate came out to be like $25,000. And then I thought, well, maybe we can just make the panel look pretty. And I had a part-time artist on staff, and so she painted it out, and you can go to the next slide. Painted it out to look like a stained glass on the street side, and on the opposite side, she put storybook characters like Cat in the Hat, Winnie the Pooh, and so on the other side. On the other side of the windows is our circulation desk, and as you can see, this plywood withstood the destructive fire, and so it was a very very powerful thing to see the next day after the tragedy sunk in, right? The tragedy of the fallen heroes, the community library destroyed. And so we were able to recover that off, and now we're going to preserve it and put it in between plexiglass and put it up at our new location when that is identified. So it's going to be a monumental thing for us to see, and on a daily basis for us who work in the library and are members of the community. It's pretty remarkable. If you go to the next slide. So as you can see, this is an aerial view. The library stood about 18,000 square feet. You see the fire trucks, that's the fire department next to the library structure. And to the right of it is City Hall. And so we were right in the heart of our community. That's just the aerial view of the destruction. If you go to the next slide. So demolition started about 3 weeks after the fire. So demo took a couple of weeks. And so this is what it looked like when demo started. And you go to the next slide, Robert. And then this is it completed. It was the demo of the entire facility was completed a month after the fire hit on February 18th. So this is what it looks like now today, and for a long time coming, it's going to look like this. So this is one of my favorite library patrons, Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez is 91 years old, and he still drives. And I had the pleasure of meeting Tony when I started my part-time library employment in 1995. Tony would come in every day to read the newspapers and magazines. That was his routine, and he never failed. He continued to do that up until the time of the fire. And so I was able to connect with Tony. This is the week after the fire. I was able to connect with Tony, and nothing made my heart more happier than to wrap my arms around Tony and tell him that we're going to be okay. And I needed to know he was going to be okay too. So I feel very fortunate and blessed that Tony's doing very well. Tony's come to our Adult Learning Center a handful of times to read the newspapers and magazines here. And that's where I'm talking to you today at our Adult Learning Center. So, but that's Tony, and I've had the pleasure since the fire running into a lot of my library patrons from a long time. And so I feel very fortunate as the city librarian that I can still be connected to my public, and so that is very rewarding.
Nice. Thank you, Vicki.
You're welcome.
So I guess I guess the next logical question that I did want to ask you about is, so moving forward, what do you see happening? I mean, just obviously the timing of it couldn't have been worse, but
Right.
what do you know what the plan might be?
Well, so our city council was going to have a special meeting on March 24th to discuss the future of the library, and so they weren't able to do that because of the coronavirus. So they didn't hold a special meeting. So currently we do not know what the future is for a future library. We were in the process with City Council to discuss a future new modernized library facility, a new build. And so my Library and Literacy Commission had a joint meeting with Council in January to discuss that future and the prospects of making that happen. And at that time, Council was non-committal, but they already knew that we were working with a group of high school students through a program where they were going to develop the conceptual designs of a future library. And so, so I hope, because of the coronavirus, I'm not too sure if the students are going to be able to finish their work before the school year ends for them, if they're going to be able to do it remotely, but they're supposed to be presenting these conceptual designs to us so that then we can, the Library and Literacy Commission can then take that to City Council. We do know through a needs assessment report from, gosh, a couple of decades ago that we do need a new modernized library facility for our community to better serve them. But as you know, because the state library construction bond died, and so we've not been able to get that endeavor going. So it's really going to take a local effort, and perhaps even again the meeting Senator Hurtado and asking her for help, calling to action. To get something, getting us back on our feet. Hopefully something will come together in that regard. There's not any current vacancy of buildings here in Porterville that we could move in temporarily. And so I'm not too sure what even the 6 months from now is going to look like at this present moment. But rest assured that the community has we've had nothing but an outpour of love and support from our community and going on. Now that's on the local level. What I can tell you is that Porterville City Library is part of a larger library cooperative, the San Joaquin Valley Library System, which runs from Merced County to Kern County. And the assistant county librarian of Fresno County mentioned at our cooperative meeting on March 13th that she'd like to launch a library giving day on April 23rd. And so hopefully we'll have a different platform to feed off of, like financial donations. I hope to tie that into an ALA initiative. Michael Dowling from the American Library Association reached out to me to do a relief fund on a national level. And so hope to get that off the ground with him and connect it with the SJVLS efforts that we can assist. Was in communications with Greg Lucas, state librarian, right after the fire, probably within that first 24 hours. And so he has been able to set aside some collection development funds for our future library. We do have a great community partner right now. Our Walmart distribution center is holding all materials that are coming back that we're out to our patrons that we own. As well as the donated materials that meet that criteria for future use. And so they're holding those materials in their warehouse for as long as we need to hold them.
Well, that's great. I mean, and as things start to, more about, like a giving kind of thing, if there's anything that I think CLA obviously should do, or and me personally as well, is just, to publicize whatever it might be that ALA or SJVLS is going to be doing for you, because I'm positive that the library community we're just waiting to find out how we can help you. So once you know what it is, get it out. Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So next question I wanted to ask you about is just, what kind of advice would you give to the people out there about just leadership in crisis? Because you a double dose of it. So is there just maybe a few points that you might want to bring up?
Well, I think I mentioned I had been doing a lot of counseling with staff because the city made sure that none of the full-time staff would lose their positions. And so they've been displaced into other city departments. And so I want them to know, although I wouldn't be their direct supervisor, that that I'm still available to them, you know, to hear anything that they may be going through and to give best advice on how to, you know, a lot of people come on a job for the first time and they don't know how to handle conflict or the personality conflicts. And so they don't want to bring anything up. But in my experience, if you don't address conflict, it only gets worse. And so I definitely through crisis have mentioned more than once that that if they feel overwhelmed with their feelings in some way, because I mean, some of my staff that were there the day of the fire were having a very difficult time. They were having almost like post-traumatic stress symptoms. And so I just reassured them the city was here to support them and, you know, pointed them to the EPA program. And so, which is the Employee Personal Assistance Program. And so definitely just taking time. I've always had an open door policy and talking to staff or, you know, making time for them and getting them pointed in the right direction where they feel better, they feel heard. And so I feel that, again, I'm empathetic naturally, but even being more so during their time of need, right? They're in a unique situation. They're doing stuff that they never thought that they would be doing outside the scope of library services, working in other departments. And so just reassuring them that although we don't have a timeline of when we'll all be back together, that, you know, we can still be here for each other. And so I, you know, just practicing patience as a big one. I consider myself a Tigger, and so my staff has never seen me, you know, take on where I'm not a Tigger. Excuse me. So sorry. And so just being patient and empathetic. Excuse me.
Okay. Actually, while Vikki is getting a drink, I'm going to put in a plug for the next leadership journey that's going to be actually a week from Thursday. It's going to be with Jonty Edelman, the director at the Hayward Public Library. And we're going to try something a little bit different with Jonty. We're going to actually have the webinar at 7 o'clock in the evening. So it'll be, in Jonty's case, a virtual wine tasting. So feel free to, you know, bring your favorite glass of wine, and we'll do that while we're talking to Jonty next week. But hey, back to you, Vikki. As far as, I mean, I really think it's so good, you know, how empathetic and you're listening to your staff. But I mean, how are you taking care of yourself?
Well, I have an 8-year-old. And so I think that through this process of change, just relying on that word behind us, being hopeful. And so I take care of myself. You know, I'm recharging my batteries. I'm finally having time where I'm not thinking about the ramifications of the fire. The city contracted out a professional service to help us get organized for the insurance claim. So that has taken up a big portion of my time, Monday through Sunday. And so now that is off and submitted, now I can like kind of dial down a little bit where I can schedule things at my own pace and not feel like there's an immediate need for anything urgent. There's not that right now because of Corona, nothing is like at a level of urgency, right? It's just one day at a time. And so I take care of myself. Like my daughter and I, you know, play games together, and we do watch movies together, and just taking time to be our family unit, you know.
Okay, I'm going to give you a fun question, and this one's going to go out to everyone out in our audience as well. But so I'll let you kind of catch your breath here. But you know, audience, do put it in the chat. What is your favorite book, movie, music, and food.
All right.
So Vikki Cervantes,
I'm gonna
go.
start with the food. My favorite food is Thai.
Oh,
And
nice.
my favorite music is rock. I love rock music. I love going to a good rock concert.
Who's your
And
favorite band?
my favorite, well, I love Pink and I love Hinder, Third Eye Blind, you name it. And
Okay.
my favorite book is Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss, because I love the story in it. So there's a lot of good stuff. My favorite movie is The Notebook. And who's next?
Well, some people definitely approve of your love of Thai food, so that's good. And actually, to people in the audience, if there are any questions that you have for Vikki, I think Christine has been catching them as they pop up, but we're going to open up the Q&A in a couple minutes. Another question that I have for you, and this was something actually that Christine probably wants to know, is because it sounds like you have daughters about the same age. It's like, man, how do you handle this homeschool stuff? It sounds like I'm top of everything else, so then you got a kid around all day.
Well, I'm handling it. So she's in third grade. She's very focused. She is disciplined, but when the teacher rolls out the assignment at 9 a.m. and there's about 3 or 4 tasks, she tends to get all caught up in those tasks. And I just reassure her that she has all day to complete those tasks, not like a confined amount of hours, right? And but she wants to get right to it. She wants to get it right done now. And I just have to remind her to take a breath, calm down, and address it. So I feel like it's almost like the college approach, right? Where you were in college and you had 3 different classes and deadlines, but you kind of made up your own time management on how you were going to get those done. So I'm teaching her to do that with this homeschooling. So she does a Zoom class with her with the fellow third graders and the teacher at 1 p.m. to about 2:30. And they have dialogue. They talk about the good things that are happening in their day, and some type of normalcy they're having, like they would in the classroom. But the only thing that's really different is really just being flexible to getting those tasks done. And so as a parent, I just reassure her that it will all get done, and then just take it in stride. And so I feel very fortunate in that regard, that she has the support from her teacher and her classmates through Zoom. And so she's able to get her stuff done. How about you, Christine? How is homeschooling going for you?
Well, mine is not really focused. So she's more about asking a million questions if she can play on her computer or what else she can be doing besides doing her actual schoolwork. So it's busy, but like you said, making that time for family time has been reassuring, because now she is kind of forced. Every minute is family time. So it's tiring. I feel myself probably wearing more makeup just to hide the circles under my eyes. But yeah, it's fun.
And no, you cannot trade daughters either, apparently.
Yeah. If you're interested, anyone wants to do some kid swapping, no, I'm joking.
I just found out from the superintendent this morning, about an hour before this call, that we will be shutting down through the end of the school year. So this online learning is going to continue through May.
Yeah, I think I just got a text, but on my phone, but I think that was it too as well, because I believe it was Gavin Newsom that actually kind of mentioned something like that. But we're not really doing online. Everything is delivered in packets of work.
Oh, okay. All right.
No instruction at 2 weeks at a time. So lots of fun.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna. I don't know if anyone out there watches. There's a YouTube series called Hot Ones, where they eat these flaming hot chicken wings while they're doing an interview. But the way they always end it is that the host says to the guest, "You got a webcam here, and you got a webcam here, and you got a webcam there." Vikki Cervantes, final words. What do you want to say?
California library community, I love you. Thank you for your outpouring love and support during our tragic time. I can't wait to see all of you at CLA and some of you too that are on today at the Directors Forum coming up later in the fall. And thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go to the Q&A. Christine, did you catch some of the questions that came in earlier? Otherwise, I'm going to start scanning through this and pick them out.
Yeah, there was one earlier. I believe Deborah Doyle asked about how do you work with your, I thought I wrote it down. It was working with your foundation.
So we currently do not have a library foundation. We have a Friends of the Library organization, and so they of course are they are taking in all of those extra books that we're not able to use in our future collection, and we hope to again, when we open that outlet for the big give, they will be instrumental in receiving funds. They're receiving funds now. If anybody wanted to mail anything into the Friends of the Library, the address is 15 East Thurman Avenue, Suite B as in boy, Porterville, California, 93257.
Oh, I was corrected. Your commissioners.
Oh, my commissioners. So we just had the opportunity to meet after the fire on March 10th. And so they have not had a meeting since. That was their first time to come together and talk about what's going on, how staff has been absorbed into other city departments. And they were looking forward to that special meeting that City Council was supposed to have a few weeks ago. So that it's important to them that something get off the ground going, whether that be a temporary location, definitely the buy-in from the stakeholders for a future build, where that's headed. So I'm not too sure that they're going to be able to have their April meeting at this point with coronavirus, but we'll cross that bridge soon.
Here's another question that it came in actually in the Q&A. Do you ever feel imposter syndrome, like feeling like you have to prove yourself in a room? And if so, how do you deal with that?
No, honestly, no. I have never felt that way. Perhaps because of my story. I mean, I came from the bottom up, so to speak, and so I worked hard to get where I'm at in my position. I feel that that because I've also given to other organizations in my community. I've been on board of directors for the Family Crisis Center here. I feel like I don't take on too much. Don't get me wrong. I don't take on every endeavor. And so I can't say that I've had that imposter syndrome, but for anybody who is going through something like that, I would just do some self-reflection on your own inventory, what you feel like you've accomplished and you could share. That just takes that little tiny piece of that share that you can share with somebody, and then you have common ground, and then that kind of just deflates all the other stuff in the room, so to speak. I mean, because I've had to sit with other department directors, and although I'm not a department director, I'm a division head, but I feel very adequate in what I bring to the table in my thoughts and thinking as far as coming to the table with solutions for city problems.
Here's another one. In the field, do you feel like for staff of color, where you get your MLS matters? And saying you're successful and you have gotten where you wanted to be, but do you feel like anyone pays attention to where you got your degree?
Well, uniquely for the city of Porterville, it wasn't a requirement for my job. That's a unique thing, right? So no, when I was searching out library MLIS programs, that wasn't something that came to mind. I feel very fortunate that I was able to take advantage of the public education support that the California State Library provided. But no, I would have to say no. Now Diane Satchel may disagree with me, but I would have to say no. I don't think so. It's not something that has come up in conversation even in my cooperative. So I'm just.
Yeah, I'll second that. I've been on like a cajillion interview panels, and to be real honest with you, I mean, they say they get their degree. I've never asked for a transcript. I've never actually asked to see a copy of their degree. So, for all I know, they could say they got their, degree from wherever it is they got it from, or they didn't get a degree and they say they got it. And I've never actually really checked. So I personally don't think it makes a whole lot of difference either. Don't lie though, and
Yeah.
and say you have a degree when you don't.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Okay, what advice would you give to those of us who may not be in a traditional leadership role, but would like to offer support to those who have to make all those tough choices? Oh, that's a good question.
Could you repeat that one more time?
Sure. What advice would you give to those of us who may not have a traditional leadership role, but would like to offer support to those like you who have to make all these tough decisions?
I always, I mentioned before, I have an open door policy. So I have my staff will come to me with some unique ideas sometimes, or maybe it's even a way we process things through customer service or delivery of services. And so I never tell them, oh, that's a terrible idea, or, I never say anything. I always say that, one, that's a great thing to bring up. And yes, you know what, let's investigate that, because that does make sense. So I think that you should feel comfortable on allowing yourself to articulate a way to make the business better, right? Because the conversation starting is really, you have a heart to make the business better. And I think any person who's making the hard decisions when it comes to budget cuts and those particular things would be willing to give you the ear to listen. And so I think you just build up that rapport with that decision maker, so that you feel comfortable, like, hey, one thing that I love about my staff is like, hey, I could be doing my job better if I only had this resource. And so if they never told me that, then how would I know? Because I'm not a mind reader. Sadly, I don't have that skill set. But I love that conversation that again, they feel comfortable enough presenting it, and I receive it in that fashion. Now, I'm not saying everyone's like willing to give you the time or day, but there's got to be some type of platform, because one thing in library services is that we have to constantly evolve. We have to be an ever adapting business mechanism. And so I think that your ideas and interest into something definitely are merit being heard, because you're an invested individual in that respective business. So.
Okay, I'm going to do like maybe two more here, and then we're going to have to sign off because we're actually already over time. But a question about being a part of the library board. Was there any kind of a conflict of interest with you being on it? But I'm also curious about the fact that you're elected on the school board, and there is no pushback from your city about being on the school board and being a city employee as well.
Right. So when I was working in Tulare, I was a Porterville resident. I filled out the appointment for the Library Board of Trustees. Council reviewed that. Council appointed me. And then I was only on for a short time as a Library Board of Trustee when the city librarian left her position. So then, of course, I had to resign from the Board of Trustees to then apply for the city library position. When I knew I was going to run in 2016, I texted the city manager and told him this is what I was thinking of doing, and if he would support that. And so he said, that's great. I think you'd be perfect to be a board member. And so it came with his support to go in that direction. I didn't get the seat in 2016, but when I ran again in 2018, I did the same thing. I'm interested in running for this position with the school board. Do you see any conflicts? And so the city manager gave me his endorsement. And so I feel very comfortable that I have that support. But beyond the city manager, I also have the support from the elected officials, women that I look up to that sit on our city council, my mentors. And so they're very proud of me in that capacity, that I'm able to serve my larger community on a school board. So but that's a great question. That's a wonderful question.
And then, okay, last one here is just any advice for improving customer service when staff understand the importance and it's, it's a top priority, but they still aren't doing it.
Yes. So we found it very beneficial that we talked to staff about what respective places they went to as far as a business entity where they had a positive customer service experience and a negative one. And so we allowed staff to dialogue in a bigger meeting with all of us about those experiences. And then we went as far as even taking pictures. So you're working the circ desk. May I help you? May I help you? How are you doing today? You know, so we went as far as like emulating these responses, so they would feel comfortable to use facial expressions to make people feel welcomed, and, you know, and supported in that regard, instead of like, may I help you? You know, it's changing. So we had, so we put a lot of photographs out, you know, what face was pleasant to see when you walked up to the circ desk to check out your materials. You know, and so we found that very helpful, but nothing works better than having an open dialogue with your staff so that you can get on the same page together. And so that's how it worked in Porterville for us. I can't say that it's a one size fits all, but it's definitely a start, because the most difficult thing is that people in general don't like change. I mean, we're going through major changes right now, how we go grocery shopping. Some of us like it, some of us don't like it, you know, and but it's for our own benefit, you know.
Okay, with that, I think we're going to end our webinar. So again, Vikki, thank you so much for, you know, sharing your story with the California library community. For, you know, those of you who are out there that maybe you're going to tell a colleague, man, I just heard the greatest webinar with Vikki Cervantes. It is recorded, and there'll be a link, and you'll get all of that probably within the next couple hours or so. So with that, no, thank you. You take care up in Porterville, and you know, I hope to see you in Pasadena this year, right? And you know, the drink's on me. Okay.
All right.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone out there. Take care. Stay safe.